Introduzco a nuestra moderadora, Vanessa Toré, quien es directora de Cooperación Económica Internacional del Ministerio de Desarrollo Económico de Curazao, para que nos acompañe y presente a cada uno de los panelistas.
Welcome to our panelists. ¿Usted habla español? Fluidamente?
Yeah.
Yes? You speak Spanish?
No.
Awesome. So, Avinash?
¿Hablas inglés?
No. Welcome, Avinash. And we also have Mark Wojtek here in the room. And online, we have the other panelists. I will introduce each one of you shortly. Please have a seat. So, everybody, welcome to the Global Leaders Perspective session, where we will explore the strategies and perceptions of global leaders in the area of maximizing competitiveness through bestshoring and nearshoring strategies. In the quest to optimize the competitive advantages of each location, it is crucial to understand how global leaders perceive our region and what strategies should be followed to gain a competitive advantage on a global scale. As was mentioned before, my name is Vanessa Toré. I am the Director of International Economic Cooperation at the Ministry of Economic Development in Curaçao. Curaçao is located in the southern Caribbean, right in front of the coast of Venezuela. And I aim to guide our esteemed panelists through a conversation that I hope will unravel critical insights into the global perception and strategies for investment in our region. As mentioned before, we have in the room Avinash Vashinta.
That's right.
Welcome, welcome, Chairman Emeritus of Tolons. And we also have Mark Wojtek, Chief Advisor of IAOP USA. We will dig into that shortly. We also have with us online, and you will see them on the screen, we have Anupam Govil. He's the partner of Avasant USA. We will also have Atul Vashinta, family.
Yes, my brother.
Your brother. Chairman, Supply Wisdom and Neo Group. And also we will have Eric Simonson, Managing Partner at Everest Group USA. Welcome. And last but definitely not least, Mark Angus, Researcher and Strategist of Genesis Global Business Services USA. I see you at my back, so I hope everybody was
there on screen as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Great to see you. Welcome to our session. And I would like to start the session by thanking you all for joining us this morning here in the Dominican Republic at the ALES conference. And we would like to hear some perspectives from you as global leaders, as professionals in the area of services, international services. So I would like to start with those that are here in the room. And I will start with Avinash. Avinash is from Tolons, USA. What are the trends and strategies of Latin American countries given the trends and major shifts in the dynamics of global business services? What are the trends that you see that we as Latin American countries can tap into, looking at the international perspective and the dynamics of global business services?
Oh, sure, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and the opportunity to come to Dominican Republic. This is my first visit to the country, even though I've been in this region for the last 15 plus years. And I think in terms of the global outsourcing landscape, it's a very significant area, and the market for this is over $500 billion globally, with India having a major chunk of that. Then you have Philippines, you have Central and Eastern Europe, and Latin America. And for some of these countries, it's a very, very large, like the top sectors for exports, if you may. I think that's one thing. The other thing is, if you look at how technology is impacting global businesses. So for example, if you look at the Fortune 500, there's been a very significant shift in the companies that are on that list. And if you were to look at as to what's shaping that shift, it is technology. So it doesn't matter what business you are in, manufacturing, chemicals, oil and gas, retail, banking, you have to be able to incorporate technology in it. I think, so for example, the COVID had obviously got a significant impact on the global outsourcing because it had people work from their homes. So really speaking, offices and office buildings became less of an issue. You could be anywhere in the world as long as you can get on and do things. I think so some of these things have really changed a lot. In fact, the new technology that everyone knows about and talks about in terms of the generative AI or AI and machine learning, and then there's a lot of talk about cloud, a lot of talk about cybersecurity and analytics. So I think these are the trends that are shaping the way things are going in this marketplace. So I think if you were to look at trends, number one is the nearshoring trend. Previously it used to be because of cultural alignment, but now I think a significant part of it is also the time zone, right? Because it doesn't matter where you are, but the time zone is so favorable for the nearshoring. The second thing is people are now trying to outsource to places where they can find the talent, and it is not the volume of the talent available, it's the quality and the cost of that talent availability that is most important, because people can actually go to 10 different countries and get the talent from there. And also I think one of the things that will define the global businesses and global business services in the future is how do you bring in innovation, because innovation is not just for the sake of innovation. Innovation is for generating new revenues and for generating new services and solution, which is not just good, it is essential for the survival and the growth of these businesses.
Okay, awesome, wonderful. So very, very insightful. Let me turn to Mark in this case. Mark is from the International Association of Outsourcing Professionals. And in this case, I would like to hear what your insights are, or can you share with us on the outlook of our region from an international perspective as well?
No, appreciate the welcome. Love that I was able to be here in person. So appreciate AILS and the other sponsors. From an outsourcing and shared services perspective, one of the things that I've noticed in the market in working with Global 1000, Global 2000 companies is that it's not outsourcing or captives, also known as shared services, setting up a captive in a location in Latin America as an example. It's actually outsourcing and captives. And so how do the two coexist together? And what does that mean from a people, process, technology perspective? What's the value for the Fortune 500 company that is looking at setting up a relationship with a captive anticipated here in Latin America? And a lot of that is valuable, mostly from the ability to drive speed, risk, and the financial benefits of these relationships. And based on trends for global business services, digital and transformation, automation, AI, robotic process automation, and some of the software companies that are in the market that provide that service from a platform perspective is rooted in the potential value. But it's also the integration of the people. And I think the people here in Latin America, the potential to set up these captive centers or create outsourcing relationships is something that we're seeing time and time again. It's as much strategy of the technology, but it's also about the talent. The remote and hybrid work models is prevalent, and obviously this was advanced based on the global pandemic. The ubiquity of work and being able to do that almost anywhere is opening up opportunities for many of us, both in the US, but in Latin America, Eastern Europe, India, Asia, and other. The last piece, and when I think about IAOP and the role that I play as chief advisor and thought leader for them, it's also about sustainability and social responsibility. So you'll start to hear words from us, and you're probably reading about impact sourcing. That's a big platform for IAOP and also many of the clients that I do business with in the United States, companies like Procter & Gamble, many of the insurance companies like Aflac, Bank of New York, Morgan Stanley, and other insurance companies like State Farm and other life sciences, consumer packaged goods, manufacturing, and technology companies. So those three, technology, the impact of people, and sustainability and social responsibility are what we're trending and watching in the market, and one of the reasons why I'm passionate about the industry both today and in the future.
Okay, awesome. Wonderful, very good insight. And I would like to turn to our panelists that are online, and this is an example of how technology can facilitate such an important event, and if not everybody can be here in person, some will join virtually. So welcome for joining us virtually. I would like to start with Anupam Govil. What are your general perceptions of the Latin American and Caribbean region related to services? Anupam? ¿Cómo? Yes. What are your general perceptions of the Latin American and Caribbean region related to services? To Anupam. He's not hearing me? I don't think he's hearing me. Is everybody hearing me, or is Atul there?
Are you guys able to hear us?
No? No, they are not hearing us.
Oh.
No, they are not hearing us. Okay, so while they sort it out, I will continue with our guests in the room. And going back to Avinash, how can Latin American and Caribbean countries understand, position, and capture opportunities?
You're right. So I think in terms of the Latin American countries in capturing opportunities, again, I'll go back to some of the key trends. Number one, Mark talked about the sustainability, the ESG stuff. I think the clients are very much focused on some of the ESG aspects. And in fact, the talent of today is also being attracted a lot towards the ESG stuff. So have had clients when they're trying to source to see if the companies that they're sourcing to has a focus on diversity, right, and on sustainability. So those initiatives are very, very important becoming. That's one thing. But again, that may not be the number one on the list, but definitely it's becoming one of the hygiene criteria. That if you don't have it, then you may not be in it. In terms of one thing that will probably define this entire industry in the future, and I can't emphasize more on that stuff, is the innovation stuff. Okay, so I think, for example, in the region, you have so many countries out there, and it's not very easy for each of the country to do everything. So I think this is a place where Alice, can play a very significant role, because they can really, kind of work with the academia, with the different private companies in different countries to be able to, have programs to skill people on the new skills. So for example, how you can use AI or generative AI and ML, for example, to be able to transform these services, right? Whatever you're doing, whether it's finance and accounting, whether it is insurance processes and things like that, you have to be able to use this technology. There is no two ways about it. A lot of times people say, well, if I use this automation, then I will have less people, less billing, less revenue. Right. Well, the thing is that you have to be able to find a way to navigate through it. Because if you don't, you will have zero revenue, zero people in the future. Right? So it's very, very important for you to do that. The other thing is that right now, I think you should also focus on pitching to companies to be able to set up their GBSs over here. Because companies are saying that when we outsource the work, some of the key and core innovation doesn't happen. Shared services, yes, but core innovation and operations, no. So they are right now saying is if we have to get innovation done, and innovation requires talent, and that talent may not be available, let's say in US. So which are the countries that can provide us with that kind of talent to set up global business operations? I think that's something that you should think about as to what are the skill sets and how do you attract global businesses to set up operations in your country.
Okay, and in this case, Mark, what do you think of the same?
Yeah, no, I think there's an opportunity for government and institutions to play a major role in potentially working with Fortune 500, Global 2000 companies to take a look at what opportunities there are to take some of the transactional work and then to the point that Avi made, evolve that into actions and insights based on the foundation of the initial work that gets scoped. I've done some advisory in the market and was part of a team that helped AFLAC actually set up a captive in Belfast, Northern Ireland. And the issue they had, their problem statement was they were experiencing 40% turnover in IT resources in Atlanta. So you think about that, every year 40% would turn over. People would leave for $5 more an hour or $3 more an hour, and they were losing those people and obviously losing the training and the institutional knowledge and the ability to deliver. And what we did is we studied a bunch of locations, both in the US and Eastern Europe. They wanted to set it up where they could set up their business as well, and Belfast became the best place. We looked at, obviously, the benefits of the people. We looked at the potential to set up and access to resources and FTEs. We looked at schools, Queen's University in Belfast, the potential to leverage the university to set up a culture. AFLAC is very cultural. And so looking at and getting the kids when they're in school to start focusing on different IT, information technology types of work, whether it's RPA, robotic process automation, whether it's artificial intelligence, maybe it's cyber, but looking and getting those kids at school, generating the culture and the collaboration and bringing them into their captive center, their shared service center in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and mitigating that turnover problem they had, but also the potential to get a better rate. And then circling back to my initial comment around the role of governments and institutions, they were getting both tax breaks and training breaks for the initial and credits for the people that they brought on into that center. And the more people they brought on, the more credits they got. And they wanted that to scale very quickly. They went from 0 to 200 in about 12 to 18 months, which was even ahead of their plan, ahead of their initial plan. And so reaching into the Global 2000, leveraging the locations here in Latin America, but looking to have governments and institutions play a role. The other thing we did, and I alluded to it around the universities and the colleges, but also creating an environment within the university and colleges so that you can get those kids right out of school and develop the culture for that company so you don't lose them and you don't have the turnover that they were experiencing in Atlanta, which has been totally mitigated based on the work they're doing in Belfast. So clearly governments and institutions can play a role there.
Awesome, wonderful. Thanks for that. So turning to our panel, which is available online, I would like to start with Anupam Govil, partner at Avasant USA. What are your general perceptions of Latin American Caribbean region related services, and how do you perceive or view investment opportunities in the Latin American and Caribbean region? Just 1 second, Anupam. Problem. Now, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Go ahead, yes.
So, I think the role of global service industry right now is at a very critical juncture due to a number of external and internal forces. Of course, the geopolitical situation around the world has caused some turmoil in terms of where work's getting done, especially with Eastern Europe, Poland, Ukraine being under a lot of stress. We've always seen additional conflicts in the Middle East and other parts of the world. On the other hand, the global economy is going through its own challenges, which is limiting the capacity of companies to invest in new initiatives while focusing more on cost takeout. Combine that with a lot of industries' own dynamics around the technology confluence that's happening, as well as the development of new technologies like AI that some of the previous speakers were talking about, and how that's impacting every segment, and rapid maturity in that whole ecosystem. So Latin America as a global services destination has of course emerged as the most viable nearshoring destination for North American clients. But I think it has to look beyond just that factor and try to specialize in some of the areas that are changing how global services they deliver, that are more and more platform-driven and technology-driven. And the reason for that is because more of our clients are looking at 6 or 7 areas where they want to leverage and outsource third-party service provider. They're looking at transformation around their customer acquisition or customer retention, engagement. They're looking at how to improve productivity in the operation, in the technology organization. They're obviously going through a lot of digitalization, and that's happening at an increased pace. Supply chain logistics, that's another critical area for companies that deal with products and goods. And finally, finance and revenue cycle management, HR, those functions. Now, each of these functions requires certain technology, platform, and skills. Combine that with a lot of innovation that's happening in the technology side in the area of cloud, mobile, agile development, data analytics, IoT, and now of course AI, specifically GenAI, although AGI is also coming up soon. So the point here is that the service providers in Latin America and the IPAs who are trying to promote these countries have to look at both the demand side drivers, what the customers are looking for, and then map it with what kinds of emerging technologies and platforms are driving that demand or enabling innovation in their clients' organization, and create that specialization where the nearshore advantage becomes more prominent. Having real-time interaction, focusing on skills and functions that require the proximity, those are very, very critical. But also understanding all the latest platforms, whether it's OpenAI or Anthropic or Google's platforms, these are also critical. So moving away from just cost arbitrage or just the nearshore play, looking at not just the vanilla skill sets, but specializing on technologies, platforms, functions, and processes within an organization, combining that also with domain around industries such as insurance, retail, manufacturing, healthcare. That's really the formula for success for nearshore destinations.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing this perspective with us that we will take very strongly into account. To Eric Simonson, staying in the same area of questioning, what insights can you share with us on the considerations that influence decision making for multinational corporations?
So I think the question was around decision making for international corporations and how they go after that. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So for many Fortune 500 or Global 2000 companies, their global delivery is already an important part of how they're operating themselves, obviously. I think a little bit counter to what some of the earlier panelists were mentioning, I think we are reaching some saturation effects where many of the large companies are more trying to optimize within their location footprint. There are still some new setups and some tweaks here and there, but it's really a lot of the new setups are more the, kind of the, we'll call it the mid-market or the upper mid-market, not as much the Fortune 500. What's going in the mind of the big multinationals, they have a lot on their plate, and it goes to many of the things that Anupam mentioned of all the disruption that's occurring, whether it be the technology, the talent models, the geopolitics, and then just fundamentally how you think work will get done is changing. And so at one level, what they're trying to do now is create options for how they can continue to evolve, not get locked into something because they know that things are in a point of being unsteady. But they also want to do some experimentation. They need to be able to try things out. And this is where some of the things we're seeing where people are trying to do very innovative ways of maybe setting up captives or a shared services organization, a lot of innovation around the build, operate, transfer model. We're seeing an increase in organizations contemplating, do they really want to use a third party or do they prefer to do this internally? And as they revisit that, the potential for location reconsideration comes up, but sometimes they also want to stay within the same geography and do employee transfers and try to minimize the risk. So I think a lot of the decision making right now is trying to prepare for a future, generally not taking too many bold actions, and it's a lot of more subtle optimization of the ways things work, how they access talent, how they structure their technology environments, et cetera. I think when we look back in 10 years, things will actually seem quite a bit different than they are now. But I'm not seeing a lot of appetite for big bang changes at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. And staying in the same area, I would like to also hear from Mark Angus, even though we heard it already from some of the panelists, but it's good to hear from the other ones as well, what the latest trends in global service sector is, and how do you see that Latin America and Caribbean countries can establish themselves as a prime services provider location?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me and for allowing me to be part of this panel. It's great to be here. And I'm sorry I could not be there in person. Maybe next time I can be there in person. But so yes, looking at some of the latest trends, we're projecting that global demand for BPO and IT services, including shared services, will actually reach just over $1 trillion by the end of this year. So there's a lot of growth in the sector right now on a year-on-year growth, and it's growing exponentially year on year. And most of this demand is originating from the global north, and the Latin and Caribbean region is certainly well placed to pick up a lot of that work. But currently, what we've seen is that roughly about 8% of the global supply of GBS services is being supplied by the Latin and the LSE region. So there's still a lot of room for growth when you look at markets such as Asia, where roughly about 36% of GBS supply is being supplied from Asia, from the Asia-Pac region. So the LSE region has got a lot of room for growth, that's certain. And what I'd like to do to just point out and just to agree with some of the film panelists, RV mentioned the fact that cost is still a major factor. We do a global survey of business buyers with regards to what are they looking for and what are their investment priorities. 82% of them still indicated that cost is a major factor, cost reduction that is, when they're looking at where to outsource. But they're also looking at their greater performance levels as well. They're wanting better customer attention. which translates into higher levels of customer lifetime value as a result. 38% of the buyers that we surveyed indicated that that was a core consideration. So whilst cost still remains a major factor, value is also becoming quite an important component for them. And then I heard talk about generative AI. We know that it's a big trend right now. The debate will certainly intensify with regards to regulatory approaches and legislation around generative AI. And there's still some uncertainty in terms of job loss. There's a lot of talk about whether there will be job loss in the BPO and ITO sector. But we foresee that AI will actually augment jobs and create new ones. We're already seeing that happening in areas like AI, like new job roles for ethics specialists, so specialists that are in the ethics environment, and chat GPT prompt engineers, just some of the new job roles being created. So, but what I do have to say is that we are tracking new startups. There's a startup that we just covered just recently in one of our analysis called Sienna that recently raised 4.7 million in seed funding to enable them to develop an empathetic, so an agent, AI customer service agent that has a lot of empathy and that can interact like a human. So that's quite a scary trend. But again, we do foresee that there will be a lot more jobs that will be created from generative AI as opposed to jobs being lost. And then I just wanted to also highlight that to pick up a bit on what Eric said about the saturation that we're seeing globally. A lot of the global business buyers that we interview are saying that they are still pursuing multi-location strategies in 2023 and 2024, and they're looking at spreading their risk across various geographies. And the LAC region is one of those geographies that they're looking at. And within that, they're also considering more tier 2, 3 locations that they're wanting to outsource to. So, so some of the major countries in the region can certainly be picking up a lot of that work. And those are tier 2 locations at both a country and a city level that they are currently looking at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. And these global trends are taking over the world in services, and we in Latin America and Caribbean for sure are positioned to tap into those opportunities. But then I would like to talk about a new phenomenon that involves companies that directly contract IT professionals from other countries. And it's called P2B, microsourcing, individuals to businesses. An example, a US-based company might hire an IT professional, for example, in Costa Rica, Uruguay, the Dominican Republic, or Curacao. This trend offers opportunities for IT professionals in these regions, but poses challenges for local companies due to increased competition. What are your insights, Atul Vashista, on this emerging phenomenon?
Right, so, you know, when I look at even the last, let's say, 10, 15 years, there's a couple of things that haven't changed, and then I'll talk specifically about this. So two things that haven't changed really is that this whole phenomena has been about talent, and then the second factor has been the ease of doing business. So locations that have won and continue to win, or the ones that are kind of rising, it's because the talent's improved and or the ease of business has improved, right? So even with the P2B kind of approach, we need to keep that in mind. When you think about the whole model of direct contracting or leveraging individuals, look, it's been going on for a while. I mean, I remember when I started my first company back in 1999, there was this whole trend of ELANs, and then a company that still is working extremely well in that space, a company called Upwork, where people have been leveraging talent in all kinds of areas, right? From architecture to IT services. But COVID, obviously, what it did was it put the spotlight on the fact that it was a lot easier because of the way our technology is today, the way our kind of access is today, that we can do business with anybody, anywhere in the world. When I think about this trend, the other thing you're starting to see is that VCs have actually funded companies who are using this model to bring talent to bear for companies. So instead of you kind of contracting directly with that individuals, think of our old staffing companies, but think of them more as now kind of internet enabled. And so that's taking place. But let's break that market in what I would call two segments, right? The large organizations and what I would call the small, medium businesses. I don't see that trend of being significantly important to large corporations. Why? Because large corporations need scale. Now, the reality is you might have examples one-off because somebody is a very specific expert in a certain area of AI or a certain skill set that's known to the executives. But let's remember the game at the end of the day is about scale. So I don't see necessarily large enterprises leveraging that very much. I mean, there'll always be some examples. But this is where I think small and medium enterprises can be extremely, extremely beneficial. The challenge will continue to be the individual's ability to market themselves. So while this trend is real, the trend is possible, but this is where individuals' marketing ability becomes challenging. And so you're more likely to see platforms. So platforms like Upwork, there's another platform called Hello as such, right? Oh, sorry, Howdy, not Hello, but Howdy. And so if I am an IPA, an investment promotion agency or a location, what I want to think about is, how do I showcase the talent? How do I showcase my location? So I address those two things I talked about. Talent, quality of talent, and the second is ease of doing business. And how do I showcase that to these platforms that truly become aggregators? And so that's where I think you can have a role of organizations like Alice and IPA and others to be able to take advantage of that.
Right. That's
and Vanessa, can I add to that?
Sure.
Yeah, so first of all, I think this is a positive for the region. I wouldn't look at it as a negative or something that's going to drain talent pool. We have to see this as a way that you're seeding talent in these countries from multinationals and other these third-party Upwork types of companies who are looking for skills and then training them by virtue of providing them these tasks and projects. So actually, it's accelerating the process of building domain knowledge and skills on these different platforms that we were talking about. So actually, it's a great positive. The other thing, as Atul was mentioning, there are a number of companies that have sprung up now that are looking at the talent pool in Latin America specifically. And they're not only combining talent, but they're also bringing technology, such as using AI to find the perfect fit for the company and with the developer, right? Or having technology that tracks the productivity of the developer. One of the challenges that people have in this crowdsourcing model is you can't track the true productivity of the developer. They could charge 15 hours for something that might actually need only 5 hours. And it's very difficult to quantify. So now there's technology that allows all of that. So this ecosystem is maturing very quickly. And my recommendation would be actually that there should be more such companies. Torque is an example of one that's doing this kind of work. They should be also available in or brought up in Latin America. And Alice can play a big role in educating the market about the advantages of this phenomenon.
Okay,
If I could,
anyone? Yes, Eric?
If I could add quickly as well. So some of this may overlap a little bit with what Anupam and Atul have mentioned. I think it's a bit different. There's also a new segment called employer of record, which is basically where a company may act domestically as the employer, but allow someone else to, in effect, manage the individual. And many of these lean companies do this across 100 countries or more, and they have they're responsible for payroll and benefits and kind of the whole, making it fairly simple. So as opposed to maybe a gig worker platform where you would take someone part-time, this would be, I want someone essentially full-time. And with this, you get into companies like Atlas, Safeguard Global, Velocity Global, et cetera. Some of these may also be interesting to investigate. The last few years, they've been growing about 100% a year. And so for some organizations, I think a lot of it on the heels of the hybrid work from COVID are saying, hey, I can have a few employees in a lot of different countries, and for certain types of things that'll work well. These employer of record companies may have needs that the investment promotion agencies haven't really understood previously, and may be worth trying to understand some things can be improved for them as well.
Eric, it's a really good point, because it just fundamentally decreases the ability to operate in a new country, right? So you don't have to worry about the legality of any of that setting up an institution or a corporation. You can use the employer record like Deal and others to be able to do that. That's a great addition.
Okay. Mark, Mark Angus, do you have any comments that you want to share based on this discussion?
Yes, I think just to add to that, we are seeing similar programs being adopted in Africa. In fact, there's organizations in countries like Nigeria that are doing just exactly what Eric is saying, where they are setting up programs. Yes, so similar to the other panelists, I've got a double message. My first message is to double down. My second message is to differentiate. So doubling down, what I mean by that is that there are locations in the region that are well known for delivering great CX back office services. Countries like Jamaica, like Mexico, for example, are renowned for delivering such services. So double down on those services and continue to deliver them well. And in fact, we're about to release our next index in the digital and ITO space, and Brazil has taken the top spot globally in data analytics and science. Argentina is also in the top 10. So again, double down, continue to follow through on that growth, and to promote the region in those areas. But the other aspect, which is what my fellow panelists have been saying, is to differentiate. So, embrace all the new trends that are coming through: generative AI, remote BPO services, work at home, P2P microsourcing, and then also look at other new forms of offshore services where the region can play well. In areas such as creative services, for example, animation, gaming, could also be areas that could be explored as areas to differentiate the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And also from our panelists here in the room, your final thoughts, ideas, tips. Let me start with Mark Wojtek.
Sure, three points. The first point, policy and regulatory support. So recommending the development of supportive policies, that's point number one. That really needs to be in place to make this successful. The second is promote strong regional branding. I think you folks are doing that. I think more of that would be recognized and appreciated. I think it would also help with the foundation for what we talked about earlier. And then the last piece, and I can't harp on this enough, fostering collaboration and partnerships. So encourage the building of
recording
partnerships.
In progress.
Encourage the building of relationships with educational institutions. I've done quite a bit of guest lecturing. That's the start in the US for some of the work that I've done. For both IAOP and even the business that I'm in, the company that I founded 2 years ago. But it's as much about getting the word out there, fostering the collaborations, and again, having the policy and regulatory. And again, don't lose sight of that evolutionary and revolutionary comment that I made earlier.
Wonderful.
Well, thanks. I think great, comments from all the panelists. So a lot has been said. So in addition to that, I think one thing that I will just kind of re-emphasize today is all the corporations are trying to transform the experience that they give to their clients and the consumers. So that's the number one thing that's going to define the future of these corporations. And that requires innovation. That requires being innovative in creating that transformation in experience. And innovation comes in from the innovative companies, startups, etc. So when you talk about policies and things like that, how do you promote the collaboration and the creation of those startups is extremely, extremely important. It won't happen by all the things that we do. It will happen from incorporating that in the enterprise. Very difficult for enterprises, large ones, to be able to work with small startups and make that happen. So you require the ecosystem and the people that have the experience of working in large corporations and startups to really be part of the ecosystem. And so the whole idea is to be able to see as to how innovation can be done at scale. And so if you're looking at how we can participate in that and how we can be successful in that, is to see, are you a partner in that phenomenon? Fine. As a country, what can you do to enable that? As companies over here, what can you do to enable that? And what kind of talent is required to enable that? And you need to develop that talent.
Thank you very much. I think it was a very interesting session. A lot of information has been shared, insights, but also great tips So tomorrow we will have very good discussions on how to continue next year and the years after. Within ALES, I think ALES can play an important role in positioning and branding the Latin American and Caribbean region. I'm very happy that I was able to participate in this session. Thank you very much to all of you, also those online. Thank you very much. Thank you, ALES. See you in the next session.